me now introduce our first speaker, and that is Victoria Christensen.
Feisty class is bright, they're verbal, they're often outspoken, and they are not always concerned with decorum. They tend to advocate for themselves, and they say what's on their minds. These are the things that they're going to transfer into their patient care. You've produced some really fine nurses up here. We're ready for work, we're ready for new mentors, but you helped us take our very first steps. Thank you. Skills. They have rooms. You need just to use a room. And we learned on these arms. They are loaded with sponges and water, and you can hook them up to blood, and then you do the thing. The blood squirts out all over the place. You can change parts on these too. You can turn them into men or women, which is always interesting.
Interesting.
You can take all, so you can have wounds and belly stuff and learn how to put peg tubes in, and you can cath on them. And sometimes patients, when they find out you're going to start your first IV ever and it's on them, they look like that. They're trying to look nice, supportive. Sure, I'm not scared. Where'd my dog go? He always does that, doesn't he? Where's Maverick? Yeah. He's over wherever the food's at.
I was born in Winneconne, Wisconsin, which is real close to Oshkosh. You may have heard of Oshkosh B'gosh. I was born there in 1960. I grew up in a river town. There was about 1,200 people the whole time I was growing up there. The Protestant church was on one side of the river and the Catholic church was on the other. And I left there when I was 17, when I graduated from high school, and lived in California for several years. I lived in Japan for a little while, Alaska for a little while. Did a lot of play with my work, which was working with the developmentally disabled. I was married when I came down from Alaska. My husband was a sea captain, and we spent about 3-4 years sailing together and taking trips, and I would go and work with him on the ships. Then I got hurt, and my husband also got killed in a completely unrelated thing from my car crash. And so I started school in Pullman in 1994.
Well, I think the term disabilities brings up some issues in nursing education. We've got a lot of tradition in nursing, and I think because of our traditions, we've also formed some ideas of what nurses must do and who can be a nurse.
A lot of the objections that came were more out of people's insecurities. When somebody's going to an area that they've never been to, you're always a little bit nervous, you're always wondering what's going to happen, you're second guessing. And I think with Victoria, a lot of second guessing was going on. How can she do this? How can she give a bath?
How did I prepare to have Victoria in Clinical? Well, first of all, I had Victoria as a student in my health assessment class. And it took me about 5 minutes to figure out that what I needed to do to prepare for Victoria was to get the heck out of the way and let her tell me what she needed.
I had a major surgery. I have rods like that in my back, only mine start.
The traditions in nursing, I think, have in many ways made us fairly rigid in our expectations. If you cannot climb on a bed and do CPR, you can't possibly be a nurse. Now, does every nurse in practice have to climb on a bed and do CPR? Absolutely not.
So that's a before picture, right?
Yeah.
And this is a year later.
There was some faculty who were very vocal about their concerns, and again, it has to do with the standards of the profession, and they felt that this would not be safe for patients. And I appreciate those faculty being open and vocal. It's the faculty who weren't open about their concerns and did not express those that it's very difficult to have a dialogue and to move on from there.
So this 30 degrees then is the correction that she's made.
She went from...
I think that we felt that the staff nurses would be apprehensive about a person in a wheelchair to be able to keep up with our very hectic and busy unit and be able to perform the tasks at bedside nursing that the nurses would have to perform. And the fear was that the nurses here precepting Victoria would actually end up doing all the work, and Victoria would be just the observer.
He says, well, I wonder which one of those heartburn episodes gave me that heart attack.
Oh my gosh.
I think there are a number of sources of fears in nursing faculty related to having a student with a disability. As a profession, we have struggled very hard to be fully accepted as a profession in our own right. There are some issues that faculty struggle with, very, very basic issues, and that is concern for patient safety. Can, in all situations in which an individual is placed, can patient safety be always assured? If that person, in this instance Victoria, if she is placed in any kind of a nursing situation during her career, are there going to be any times when things will break down and she in fact cannot respond appropriately?
You know, if you have a disability to other people, then you are automatically not able. And they feel sorry for you. And they fall all over the top of themselves to talk down to you and treat you like a child and try to do things for you that are absolutely unnecessary. They somehow feel that they're terribly different from you. I'm not quite sure in what way, but somehow they're terribly different from you, and I definitely get this, thereby the grace of God go I. Oh, that's my feeling exactly about some of those walking people.
It's one of those, you're such an inspiration conversations.
Inspiration. You know, I hear that a lot. People just turn around and tell me they're inspired and they haven't got a clue who I am. They don't know what drives my day. They don't know about, you know, the things that, they have no clue how my day goes, what's hard for me, what, you know, I've got these bills to pay, I'm having a problem in my love life, my dog's at the vet, you know, this paper is due in 2 hours, blah, 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 and suddenly I'm inspiring to them. I'm not quite sure why. Going into nursing school for me was a protective maneuver for myself and for other people. And the thing that I liked about nursing the best, you can be with any kind of person that you want. You can, you know, nurses and doctors are just expected to go forth and touch and heal and help, and it doesn't matter what color you are or your educational background. Or I thought it would absolve me from having to live in a real biased, prejudiced atmosphere. I thought, oh, geez, I go into nursing, you know, I can be nice to everybody and I can love everybody the same and help everyone the same, and that would be so cool to advocate and do all that and keep people safe from the medical monster out there, Western medicine. And I came into nursing and I found out that it's probably as prejudiced and as biased as any group of people. Once I got into nursing school and really into the hospitals and seeing how nurses behave and interact.
I think, of course, when we talked about a student nurse coming in a wheelchair, there was feelings of just doubt, of course, like how can somebody do this work in a wheelchair? There was questions, and who would do that, you know?
There's a lot of students and a lot of staff who might have been okay to her face, but you knew that you heard the stuff behind their backs. You had clinical instructors that didn't want her in their clinical group because I don't want the girl in the wheelchair because I don't want to have to deal with the stuff that has to happen. And the nurses would come up to me and go, "What is she doing here? Why is she here?" And I'm just, "She's a nurse. What do you mean, why is she here?" And they'd look at me and like, "Come on, Mary, get real. What's going on?" And what happens if Victoria needs to transfer a patient? Or what happens if her patient codes? Or what happens if this? And I looked at her and I go, "Aren't we a team?" I go, "What happens if I need to transfer a patient?" I go, "I can't do it by myself." I go, "I'm going to need you and you and you in there helping me." I go, "And that's what this is all about, is being a team." We had an instance in clinical where we had to go with an IV team for the day. And Victoria just happened to be the day before mine. So she went in and she came back and reported that they'd been sitting around the table and she had said, "What would it take for someone like me to get a job on your team?"
And when I asked them what I would need to be able to join their team, they said I would have to go and find at least a couple years of experience in that particular work.
She had to have all this experience and that this was a very difficult position, and they thought that, she wouldn't do well at this position. So the next day I went in and we're sitting around the table and I thought, what the heck?
And she asked them, because like I said, my classmates are kind of sneaky that way.
What would it take for someone like me to get a job working on your team? And they said, "You're breathing, aren't you?" And I was in awe. I couldn't even say anything. I thought, what happened to the years of experience? What happened to, this is a very difficult position. It's obviously not a difficult position for me, but it is for her.
The job? IV therapy. Going around the hospital placing IVs in people all day long. Very, very, very simple work. It's one of the easiest tasks in nursing.
I'm going to have you stand over there just initially when I do this so that you can see what I do. I leave the bed rail up because for me it's convenient to lean on the bed rail. We pretty much want to start the IV up in here. And the surgeon will let you know in same-day surgery what their preference is as far as gauging the needle. Go ahead and feel this right here. Just get some idea with your gloves on what it feels like. Of course, it's going to feel differently in a real live person, but maybe it's going to make some similarities.
I remember seeing Victoria and thinking, not necessarily why is she here, but how is she going to do this? And she said, "My biggest challenge is what all of you people think about me, and that all of you people are looking at me and saying, how is she going to do this?" And she said, "I'm going to figure it out. I'm just going to do it. But my biggest challenge is that you guys are looking at me thinking, how is she going to do that?"
I'm going to be a nurse pretty quick. I'm going to graduate from nursing school Friday.
I saw from the very beginning the contributions that she could make. The fact that she had dealt with some pretty tough things in her own life would make a difference in how she relates to people as she practices her profession, and make a difference in other people's lives. She has a sensitivity and an understanding of some of the struggles that people have.
Nurses with disabilities bring everything that all other nurses bring, including a deep understanding of disability issues that the rest of us don't have. The Pew Report tells us that the best care is provided by linguistically and culturally congruent providers. And I am not facile linguistically nor really culturally competent in caring for persons with disabilities, although I try, and I think we all try. The people who really are experts at that are the people who have disabilities themselves and can bring a deeper understanding to that. I also noticed that clients who were cared for by Victoria established a very rapid identification with her, because it seemed to me that when they looked at her, they saw someone who struggled and who understood struggle and would be more open to their experience of illness and be able to help them.
Where are we now?
We're at the Otis Hotel. It's a single room occupancy in downtown Spokane. And most of the people that we find here are very low income. I'm a community health nursing student. I selected this environment to do my community clinical in. There are 10 people in my clinical group, and we walked all over downtown and looked at all the different sites. I selected to be here at the Otis Hotel. So what do you think of the place? Used to be a grand hotel, probably. All the rooms are the size of the kitchen. Mattress, a little sink hanging out of the wall. Yeah, they drip a lot. It's a bad environment. It's a community health hazard to the people that live here, this community, and you know that overflows and reflects on the community out the door, down the street, and around the corner. I would like to work a position in the community as a community health nurse, which would be based out of a single room occupancy place such as the Otis, to serve the types of people that live in this kind of environment, because they are pretty much without services right now. I started working as an advocate for the developmentally disabled community back in my home state of Wisconsin in the late 70s. Some of that probably has to do with why I decided to work in an SRO. I mean, it's just a continuation of something I've always done. Advocate for people that nobody seems to advocate for. Underserved, undernourished, undertreated, underrespected, disenfranchised, misplaced.
They really get upset when we don't do as they ask.
We've never been hard on you though, have we?
No, you haven't been hard on me, no.
How many glasses of milk did you have? How many cigarettes have you been smoking?
Nag, nag, nag.
Well, it's tedious and it's hard and the hours are long, and you find yourself absolutely loving whole bunches of it, and then you also find yourself hating whole bunches of it. And then there's the stuff that you love. You love your patients. You find the little niches that you absolutely love. You have little light bulbs going off in your head and you realize, oh, I can do it this way. I don't need to reinvent that wheel for that instructor. You know, late night, no sleep, poor diet, trying to do good, trying to do well, not hurt anybody, not hurt yourself, make sure your classmates make it through. That's the experience of nursing school for me. If you have a disability and it's not obvious, don't mention it. And if you have a disability and it's obvious, don't mention it. Just go and apply and go to school. If you can get into a school that doesn't have an interview process, go there. Just get accepted via the mail and arrive.
We're oppressive to people because we're in a position of power, and we forget that sometimes, actually. And, you know, we're co-learners in this thing. I'm not just a teacher. If I don't learn something from my students, I'm not doing a good job. And so we need to learn from all of our students, and we need to learn from our students who have visible disabilities, those with invisible disabilities. All of it adds to the mix. And if we can see people as a gift instead of being so busy trying to pound them into whatever form we think they should take. I mean, if we could get robots if we want that, but I don't want robots. I want people who are really different and really real and who bring what they bring and who are all wounded healers, because everybody is.
If there were a school out there that were going to admit a student with a disability, I would tell them to let that student in and just let that student learn and have all the opportunities that they need to have to complete that degree, so that that student can go ahead and contribute to their society and to their family, take care of themselves. That's what I would say. Open the door, give them a locker, tell them where the lunchroom is.